Excuse me. I can no find any Bruce Lee movies? It's no normal for a video store to no have the Bruce Lee.
Holy shit! You're Anderson the Spider Silva, the greatest middleweight of all time.
Yes, I am the Anderson. I am look for the great show, the martial art movie.
Oh yeah, those are in the action section. Hey, you remember that time you were in Never Surrender?
The times were hard, okay? The UFC did not pay good. I had to do the movie.
Yeah, I bet. You know, I was actually going to review that movie today.
It's no good for to do review. The world need to surrender.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad. But I'll tell you what, since you're my hero, I won't review it at all. Your secret's safe with me. As far as I'm concerned, you were not in Never Surrender.
You're the great friend. I come back later for the martial art movie.
All right, man, no problem. Yeah, I'll be here. I'm reviewing it anyway. Oh, hello, internet fans, and welcome to 3B Video. I'm your host, Rotten Roger DeMarco, and today we're going to be talking about Hector Echevarria's 2009 film, Never Surrender. All right, just making sure he wasn't here. Okay, so for those of you that don't know about this film, here is your plot synopsis. An MMA champ named Diego is lured to the underground fighting realm, where he competes in these no-holds-barred tournaments and gets paid in pussy. That's right, I said it. Not a horror movie this week, folks. Just a horror movie. Haha! See what I said? See what I did there? I had some fun. But before we get into my overall thoughts of the film, first, let's take a look at
Ryan Rogers! Splatter facts.
we have 9 dead bodies. We have 9 titties and 1 bush. We have gratuitous voice dubbing, $5 fight choreography, perfect push-up product placement, pussy paychecks, all the grunting ever, obligatory winning all the fights montage, sexy pool spinning, a table punching temper tantrum, cage fighting in business slacks, and my personal favorite, 1 chained up chick with 1 tit hanging out. The methods of death include but are not limited to punched to death,
God damn it, I'm dying.
broken head, gunshot, and choked to death. Okay, so now on to my overall thoughts of this film, guys. If you're a fan of mixed martial arts films, if you're a fan of boxing and MMA and all of that stuff in general, then no doubt you have scoured the internet, you have scoured the world looking for worthwhile representations of said sport that you're into. It's pretty tricky when it comes to MMA, especially in the late 2000s, because MMA was at the peak of its popularity, and so there was a bunch of these schlocky little movies coming out, and then there were movies that were just completely ridiculous. I'm looking at you, Never Back Down. So as a mixed martial artist, finding a movie that represents your discipline and does it correctly is pretty tough to do. Now this movie happens to be one of my guilty pleasures. I love this movie, but full disclaimer, this is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. This movie is the Room of mixed martial arts movies, which makes it a train wreck and makes it amazing to watch. So to put this movie in perspective, let me just lay this out for you. Hector Echevarria, who made this film, was a former mixed martial artist who became a producer, writer, director, and actor. And this movie is sort of his love letter to himself, I would assume. Super talented guy, there is no question about it that he is a talented mixed martial artist, but this movie sort of feels like he had the deep pockets, so he wanted to kind of blow himself for 90 minutes in the most popcorn fashion that you could ever see. It was like he made a bunch of phone calls and he got a bunch of talented mixed martial artists to be in this movie to play his buddies. So my question is, how can a movie with BJ Penn, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, Rampage Jackson, Heath Herring be a bad movie? Well, the answer is simple. These guys are professional mixed martial artists, not stuntmen, not fight choreographers, and most importantly, not actors. But that is what makes this movie so fucking amazing. So George St. Pierre plays Diego's best friend. And the greatest thing about George St. Pierre being in this movie is he has a very thick French Canadian accent, so sometimes it's hard to understand him in regular interviews. So what they do in this movie is completely dub him over. Can you imagine GSP working on this movie for a couple of months, and then it finally gets its release, and he goes to see it, and he's like, hey guys, everybody come see me in this movie. I did a great job, I played the friend. And then the movie starts,
And he's got a voice like this in the movie.
and it's not even really him. That would hurt your feelings. That would not be awesome. And they did that this whole movie to him, which makes it hilarious. No doubt that Hector Echevarria is a talented mixed martial artist, but when you watch this movie, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow that he would be considered the greatest mixed martial artist of all time, and he has all of these accolades and all of these things. Not taking away from who he is in real life, but at the point that this movie was made in 2009, he was a little bit older, he was a little bit rounder, not out of shape by any means, but maybe not mixed martial artist shape. For me, this movie is a total time capsule. You guys remember in the late 2000s when everybody was wearing Affliction shirts and all of those like acid washed tight jeans with rhinestones on them? Well, this movie remembers. So if you're too young to remember that, just go back, give this movie a watch, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So the fashion trends in this movie really date it, because shortly after this, MMA exploded, and the UFC in particular got all of these crazy sponsorship deals and stuff, and so fighters stopped having sponsors like Tap Out or Affliction or any of these weird brands that everybody wore, and then they just started rocking Reebok. So then fighter fashion seemed to kind of change. It didn't have all of these rhinestones and big crosses and skulls, and Jesus didn't tap. That's a real thing. That's a real shirt. For those of you who weren't around in the MMA boom of 2009-ish. To me, it almost feels like Hector watched Bloodsport and Kickboxer, and he took a couple key notes, and then he even sort of duplicates the Van Damme fight style in those films, where it may be one very specific kick, but in Kickboxer or Bloodsport, they might show that same kick 7 different times from different angles. So when Van Damme jumps up to kick someone, it looks like he's actually landing 7 kicks. It's a very unique thing to Van Damme specifically, because martial arts movies started to shift around that time. Van Damme is flashy, no doubt, but he was doing very simple techniques when you compare it to the stuff that was coming out with, say, Jackie Chan, like Who Am I and things like that. Fight choreography had sort of stepped up its game, and we were kind of behind. And I feel like Hector attempted to duplicate that Bloodsport Kickboxer style and then try to marry it with a little bit of fight choreography to flex some jiu-jitsu and some overall MMA techniques. But it comes across very hokey. And it almost does follow the Room template beat for beat. But there's some really silly things. When you get to the end of the film, there's a massive showdown / shootout and a big brawl and all of this stuff. Once the dust settles from the big brawl, our lead characters leave this building and then get into a giant Hummer limousine, and then they say something like, hey, who's ready to go to the club and maybe party, yeah? And there's a bunch of naked chicks with it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. This is a movie that you really, really need to watch with your friends. Yeah, there's a lot of negative things about this movie, but they all work in its favor for me. So in my personal opinion, this movie is 100% popcorn as fuck. Because it's this crazy little time capsule of late 2000s mixed martial arts vibe, and you've got all of these famous fighters in it doing weird little cameos and attempting to act, and it's just fun, and it's filled with tits, and it's filled with violence. Also bonus points because the lead villain, Cypher, is played by Patrick Kilpatrick, the Sandman in Death Warrant with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So bonus points for that because he's a great bad guy. Overall, this is a very average mixed martial arts film, but if you are into this type of stuff, you're gonna have a blast with this movie. Get all your buddies around and just sit back and laugh at how ridiculous this movie is. I know that out there in the real world, mixed martial arts is kind of still looked down upon, like human cockfighting and all of this stuff. And so the movies about mixed martial arts don't get taken seriously. And this movie, I could probably see why the majority of people didn't even know about this film, or, you know, just completely glossed over it and didn't give it a chance. But in here, in 3B video, this B movie is the movie. And I suppose I should probably get going, because after all, there's a lot of movies out there and somebody's got to watch them. So why not me, right? How long were you there?
I see enough. You are no the great friend. You the stupid donkey. I break you face.
Hey, we can talk about this.
Time for to get the face kicked. Whoop.
Are you gonna let the light fall?
Sure am. Didn't realize it was falling.
Did it start a fire?
Yep.
Like a for real fire?